and welcome to the Safe and Sound series. My name's Tal Shmerling. I'm a Special Counsel at Moores in the Child Safety, Safeguarding and Discrimination team. And I'm joined here today with Cecelia Irvine-So, who's a Practice Leader at Moores, who leads also the Education team.
Thanks for joining, Tal.
Thank you for joining, Cess. So the early childhood education and care sector has been in the spotlight recently following the news that a Victorian childcare worker has been charged with 70 child sex offences. And certainly as a parent of two young children myself, I know parents are feeling a little bit uneasy at the moment. Certainly our clients are feeling uneasy as well. And also over the last few weeks, we've seen the federal, state and territory governments clamouring to announce significant reforms to help make children safer. And so the purpose of this series is that we'll be discussing some of those really significant reforms. And today we're going to be focusing on the issue of CCTV cameras in early childhood care and education settings. So Cess, will CCTV make children safer in childcare, and why has there been some pushback?
So, starting with a really easy question there, Tal. Look, we know there's been significant reform. What we haven't seen in all jurisdictions is laws introduced yet for a lot of the reforms. We have other media on our website that can help you get across the reforms, and for any of you who are ASBAR members, you can also watch our comprehensive 1.5 hour video for ASBAR members on all of these reforms in great depth. But to answer your question, a bit of a trick question. We know, Tal, that there is already CCTV in a lot of centres, and there are rules about where you can and can't have that CCTV. Our clients already know what that is. This is a new proposal, though, that the various education ministers agreed on just last Friday, the Friday before, the 22nd of August, that they would have a trial in 300 centres of CCTV. So what does that mean? It means they're going to install it and see what happens. This recommendation has come out of the Victorian Government's rapid review because of the agreement of a number of states to adopt some or all of those recommendations. It has become a national conversation with respect to the national law. In the rapid review in Victoria, it was one of the most controversial recommendations, and there are some very strongly held views about CCTV. So the reason for that is probably two risks that we can touch on just briefly. Firstly, it can create a false sense of comfort. The parallel perhaps is with the Working with Children check regime, which was heavily criticised in the review as being a bit of a set and forget sort of thing that people felt it provided safety when it didn't. That's one aspect. We know that from cases that people who are determined to offend know where cameras are located and not located, and they also know whether they're monitored or not. The other risk it creates, which does need to be very carefully mitigated, is around the footage, where it's stored, for how long, and the security around that. And there's some really important considerations around what happens to the footage too.
And that will create, I think, potentially some new child safety risks actually. So if you imagine that there might be hundreds of hours of footage of children playing, eating and sleeping. We know that people say now the hacking risk is not so much an if it happens, but when it happens. And in conjunction with some of that new AI technology, you can imagine how that footage could be used to create child abuse material as well. So it'll be really important if schools are going to have CCTV footage in their schools, that they'll be making sure that they're being very careful in answering those questions around who is going to be responsible for monitoring the footage, who's going to have access it, and what kind of safeguards are going to be in place to make sure that cybersecurity and hacking risk is properly addressed as well.
That's right.
There's also probably going to be some other things that schools will need to think through, for example, around how these laws are going to gel with laws around the prohibition of CCTV in toilets. which is obviously also a high risk area. And there also is going to be a significant cost attached to it. And whilst on the flip side, there is a belief that that CCTV does create a deterrence factor and makes children safer in that way.
Yeah, I mean, you've also got issues with consent for privacy purposes, and those rules don't evaporate just because we're having a child CCTV. There's also laws around surveillance and what you can use surveillance cameras for. There's going to need to be a body of work informing parents. If you look at the reforms, a theme of those reforms is keep parents informed, get them involved in the conversation. So we are now requiring their cooperation when we do things like, say, no mobile phones in child areas of early childhood services and ELCs in schools. So equally, we need to inform them about whether they're going to be captured on CCTV, how that footage is used, etc. Some interesting challenges too for our clients who have multiple operations from one centre. So they might have one daycare, they might have occasional care, but they also have a community centre. So who exactly is captured on that footage coming into the centre becomes a question of privacy and consent and having the right safeguards in place.
Yeah, I think that's all right. And some of our clients are already coming to us and looking to work with us, for example, to review and update their child safety policy and procedure and code of conduct, using this as an opportunity to revisit their risk assessments around their physical environments in particular, but also their online environments, taking a fresh look at some of their recruitment and screening processes. And also using this as an opportunity to do some tailored scenario-based training as well to make sure that staff are feeling confident to address child safety risks when they arise. And we're also seeing boards taking a renewed interest in understanding their non-delegable duty around child safety and making sure that they're across the child safety risks as a board as well.
Yeah, that's right, and I think that is okay if they're having a bit of a back to basics approach with some of this stuff. I mean, even as we make some of these contemporary reforms are changing and legislation was introduced just last week here in Victoria, for example, around working with children's checks. Whilst we, of course, encourage our clients to be across all the reforms, it is important to remember that the basics need to be done correctly. And what I mean by that is make sure that you actually have active supervision in your centres. That has been something that's been a real theme in this report. Make sure that you understand what it means to eliminate the opportunity for offending. If we go back to the Royal Commission, Tal, that was one of the findings, was a lot of offending is opportunistic. So focus always on removing that opportunity. So CCTV is not going to do that. If we know there are hidden areas in your centre, and that was another part of the reforms that's proposed. So, yes, absolutely get across the reforms. CCTV is just one of those, but go back to basics as well, and some of those key hygiene practices are really important.
Thank you for joining us, and tune in a couple of weeks' time for the next part of our Safe and Sound series.